We're 11 months ago, of course, we were in the Big Bend region on the heels of Hurricane Idalia. And with Hurricane Debby, we had a very similar track. I mean, probably eerily similar to what we had. Fortunately, Debby was not as powerful as Idalia was, and consequently, the debris and the damage that we sustained with Idalia was not matched by this storm. Nevertheless, when you have a place that's still in the process of recovering from a major hurricane and you have another big storm go across, I mean, that presents challenges. I want to thank Kevin Guthrie, Florida Division of Emergency Management Executive Director. We always monitor. As soon as we get into hurricane season, we monitor the weather. We look to see what's going on. We saw kind of something brewing. It wasn't even an organized storm, and we're like, look, there's a possibility it forms, and so we're going to be ready. So we did an executive order last week, marshaled resources, and we had an overwhelming amount of resources ready. And fortunately, we hadn't had to use a lot of what we had staged. I'd much rather prepare for the worst and hope for the best than not be prepared. So Kevin and his team did a great job with that. We are, of course, we had landfalls of Category 1 yesterday. The storm's now Georgia, South Carolina area. It's likely going to drop a lot of rain there. We have currently, as of this morning, 110,600 Floridians that are without power. That's about 37,000 from private companies, 71,000 from electrical co-ops, and less than 2,000 from the municipal utilities. Now, there's a lot of folks standing by that are helping with this. Almost 600,000 accounts have already been restored throughout Hurricane Debby. And we had 17,000 linemen ready to go, and I know they're working very closely with everybody. I think as of this morning, Jefferson County had the highest percentage without power. They were 99%. As you get into these Big Bend counties into north central Florida, you have some pretty significant power outages, but folks are working on it. We've got a lot of folks there. One of the things we did this time, this is not even close to the number of power outages that we had after Idalia. One of the things we did was we have 9,400 feet of flood protection devices that we erected, including around some of the substations. And that has helped prevent some of those substations from getting flooded, which I think is really, really good. Of course, we have National and State Guard on the ground. I'm pleased to be able to announce today that the Florida Small Business Emergency Loan Bridge Program has been activated, and we have $10 million available for businesses that have been impacted by Hurricane Debby. This gives immediate cash on hand needed to make repairs, keep employees on payroll until additional resources can be secured. We know daily operations matter to make ends meet, so this will help businesses be able to get back on their feet. Eligible businesses may get up to $50,000 through the program. Agriculture and aquaculture can get up to $100,000. Again, not as much damage as we had with Idalia, which is a good thing, but we want to make those resources available. Of course, there's zero interest loans, and so that's something that will be very good. www.floridajobs.org/EBL if you want to apply for the Emergency Bridge Loan Program. We are going to be standing up a business resource center at Taylor County Middle School. We're going to be visiting there later today. It'll be operated by Florida Department of Commerce in partnership with a lot of state agencies, Citizens Insurance, and private sector partners. State agencies and private sector partners are also in Perry, distributing supplies and providing business recovery resources for residents impacted by the hurricane. And the Hope Florida bus will also be deployed to this research center to help bring hope to those who need it. We have now, through the Florida Department of Emergency Management, completed 996 storm-related missions and currently engaged in about 500 more missions. And so these are requests from local communities, counties, municipalities to help with storm response. And Kevin and his team are the fastest in the business at meeting those requests. Heck, probably most states wouldn't even have requests met at all. We are also going to be standing up points of distribution in Jefferson, Dixie, and Taylor County. So that'll happen today. So those are things, if people need food and water, you go through the pods, and those are going to be able to be handed out. Kevin is working with different folks. You know, one of the things when we had Hurricane Ian that hit Southwest Florida, Category 5 storm, massive impact, massive damage, but you were in Southwest Florida the next day, a day and a half later, and you had Publix open, you had Wawa open, you had a gas station. All this stuff got open very quickly, and that really made a difference in the community. So Kevin's working. We want gas stations to be open. If there's not power in an area, get them up with generator. Kevin also has fuel that he's brought in. So there's a lot of things that are being done there. But clearly, we understand getting all the different key. Now, Waffle House is going to be open because they get open immediately every time. And Publix does a great job. A lot of these do a great job because they're battle hardened. They understand how these things operate. So Kevin's working with those folks. We want to make sure everyone has the fuel that they need. FDOT, we had big impacts in Sarasota, Bradenton from flooding. That is still ongoing. We are going to see more flooding in northern Florida. These things take time as the water comes down. You're going to see these rivers rise. You're going to see the tributaries rise. That's just inevitable. How much, we'll see, but we are definitely prepared for that. But on that west coast of Florida, you had port closures. Now all ports open. Manatee, Tampa, St. Pete seaports are open. All airports are open. Sunshine Skyway Bridge is back open. We have, if you want information on up-to-date road closures in your area, go to fl511.com. You may see, and particularly in North Florida, you may see some roads that will become flooded as rivers rise in the ensuing days. That's definitely possible. So check this out. Because it may be that it's not flooded today and it could be flooded tomorrow. That is definitely possible, particularly in some of the areas that we're talking about where some of the bridges are low-lying, some of these other ramps are low-lying. So please take precautions. Since the storm hit, and look, we count anything, so maybe the storm didn't cause, but we had a traffic fatality in Dixie, killing 2 people. An 18-wheeler in Hillsborough County. The driver was deceased there. The roads can be hazardous when they're underwater. Don't try to drive through that. Take proper precautions. We had, after Idalia, certain programs that the federal government agreed to do, and this is kind of part of how this stuff works. There's certain roles that FEMA plays, certain roles that the state plays. I can tell you, since I've been governor, we are way more proactive than any other state. We fill gaps. When the federal government drags its feet on stuff, we'll fill gaps. We did it with housing after Hurricane Ian, where we took on the mission. We're doing other things with giving states, we float money because the federal bureaucracy can take a long time to be able to do. So we're doing more than any other state ever has. At the same time, it's like, okay, they need money in this disaster fund that they have, and it's not there. They're playing politics. Some people don't want to do money to help victims of natural disaster in our own country because they want more money for things like Ukraine and things halfway around the world. And I think they need to stop playing politics with it and just get it done. I don't know what the needs are going to be at this point, but I know there's still needs from Hurricane Idalia, and those need to be met. And we want to work with Congress to make sure that they do. So I appreciate all the hard work that everyone's put in. We're going to have issues we're going to have to work through on this, but given what we've been through as a state, in our history, this is something that's clearly going to be surmountable for us. And so I appreciate everyone that's involved. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin Guthrie.
Thank you, Governor. It's nice to know that Ben Nelson, who is now a meteorologist in Jacksonville, used to be with the division. He originally came up with the Waffle House Index, and it's still being used today. So, you know, good shout out there for Ben. State Emergency Response Team continues our efforts to provide necessary resources to communities that suffered damages due to the impacts of Hurricane Debby. We have received, as the governor said, nearly 1,000 missions, and we have fulfilled 600 of those, and we're currently working between 400 and 500 more. We have pumps and flood control systems pre-staged to deploy as requested. The riverine flooding is going to continue to happen for probably anywhere, depending on the river, from the next 3 days to the next 2 weeks. I will say that we have over 100 National Guardsmen right now in Manatee County and Sarasota County deploying tens of thousands of feet of Tiger Dam and U.S. flood control systems to help out mitigate some of the flooding issues there. Speaking about flooding, our recovery teams and our mitigation teams are out in the field today and tomorrow conducting assessments as it relates to flooding to expedite that process and make sure that we comply with the 180-day rule. There's a 180-day rule about flooding issues and permitting that the federal government has. So we're on that from day one. That's going to be very, very important that people understand that. We have 180 days to fix some of these flooding issues. If your home has suffered significant flood damage, ensure that the electricity is off and that you are wearing appropriate safety gear before entering. For more information on what we call muck and gut, that is, in other words, muck out what you have. I know the survivors here in Steinhatchee with Idalia have been there, done that. So again, make sure you go to our website and look for that information on taking the sheetrock out, gutting out the system, drying out the boards, the 2x4s and other wood inside the house. We also talk about how to get that to the street for debris collection. You need to separate that away from the appliances and other type of material that you put at your road's edge. But please make sure you go to our website on that, floridadisaster.org/guide. As officials declare it safe for you to return home and assess damages from Hurricane Debby, remember to take close-up and far-away pictures of any damages to include the high water marks. Again, in some of our riverine areas, the high water mark has not happened yet. So you may need to take pictures over multiple days until you find out where the high water mark is at. Having these photos will help you file your insurance claims more efficiently. So again, as he's standing behind me, I'm going to beat him to the punch. Make sure you call your insurance company. Make sure you call them and report what you have. If you are without power and using a generator, please make sure that you follow our 20-20-20 rule. That exhaust needs to be 20 feet away from your home, away from an open door, heading away from the house. If you have to refuel your generator, do not refill your generator with fuel while the generator is running. Please turn it off and wait 20 minutes, let it cool down. And then spend $20 to purchase a carbon monoxide / smoke detector for your home. All right, we can prevent a lot of deaths by doing that. If you're beginning the cleanup process, please ensure you are wearing the appropriate safety gear. Never handle any down power line, and please do not attempt to cut lines away from the house. You could be cutting a fiber optic line that provides access to 911. You could be cutting off the internet. You could be cutting social media, cell services, or the power itself, which may be a live line. Make sure you sort debris, as I've already mentioned. If you are in need of assistance, you cannot remove the debris yourself. You cannot cut that tree. Please call our crisis cleanup hotline. We will match you up with a volunteer agency who will come and do that for free. Again, for free. That'll lead me to another point. That number is 844-965-1386. That's 844-965-1386. Volunteer organizations are free. They will never ask you for money. If somebody is asking you for money, there's probably a better than 90% chance that is a scam. You need to report them to the Attorney General. You can do that at her website. Please be sure to follow us and the agency on all social media platforms. That's at FLSERT on X and Instagram, and at FDEM on Facebook. Governor, always thank you for your leadership and your support as we continue to help out Floridians.
Great. So we'll be, working. We'll be monitoring. I know Kevin's going to go down to Bradenton, Sarasota area and look, we definitely saw very high water rise very quickly there, and we are bracing for more that's going to happen in north central Florida. There's just a lot of water. When it dumps in southern Georgia, it makes its way down to us. But we've got people bouncing back, whether it's a Publix, Waffle House. I mean, Waffle House, I think it was like literally the next morning after Ian, they were just cranking away. We were helping out. And it's I used to do the waffles at home. I'd get the Waffle House. They got really good batter you can get, and we do it, and my kids loved it. I was like the hero for doing it. Well, finally I was like, why don't I take you to a Waffle House? Okay. So this is in the last 6 months we started going in person, and they will get a waffle with chocolate chips and whipped cream, and Madison and Mason will eat that entire thing. And then Mamie, she'll just eat the chips off the waffle. She doesn't eat the waffle. I said, Mamie, it's Waffle House. The waffle's good. You need to do it. But she'll just sit there and eat the chocolate chips. But they're big fans of Waffle House. And now they're asking me if there's other places like that. And so maybe we'll have to go to International House of Pancakes at some point to be able to beat their needs. But it's been really good for the community when these businesses are able to get back open very, very quickly, and we appreciate it. I'll take some questions in a minute, but just first let me offer some comments about Kamala Harris picking the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, to be the vice president. We all remember the BLM riots of 2020 in Minneapolis. Those were riots that Harris egged on and raised money to bail out the rioters with the Minnesota Bail Fund, and they're riots that Tim Walz, as governor, sat back and let happen. He sat back and let the city of Minneapolis burn. That city has been gutted as a result of those riots. We would never allow that to happen in the state of Florida. So this is a ticket that really represents the spirit of those 2020 BLM riots. And you have a very vapid San Francisco Democrat, and then you've got a Ilhan Omar style leftist, Tim Walz, who has the same policies as his fellow Minnesotan Ilhan Omar. We do not need an America that represents the failed policies of San Francisco or the failed policies of Minneapolis. We do not need to see poop on the street and cities burning down. That is not a prescription for America to work its way back. And I can just tell you, as governor of Florida, particularly in that 2020-2021 period, people fled those jurisdictions, and they'd come to Florida and they would tell me about the mismanagement and about letting the inmates run the asylum and how that just destroyed the quality of life. And so I think it was in that period you were 5 times more likely to move from Minnesota to Florida than vice versa, and that's a result of people fleeing those failed policies. Why would we want that for the United States of America? Where are people going to flee to? We can't have everybody live in the state of Florida, I can tell you that. Anybody have any questions?
Governor, I'm curious how big a role those Tiger Dams played in the protection of those substructures, the infrastructure. You said this is the first time that those have been deployed.
For substations.
Yes.
It helped. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the power, the interruption was less, and the restoration was very quick. So we think it was a positive. Now, this storm was not as powerful as an Ian or even an Idalia, but it did leave a lot of water, and so being able to protect the substations was important. So I think that's going to be part of our repertoire going forward, and that's good. It's good forward thinking. We could sit back. We had Ian, was a terrible storm, and that response was better than we had ever seen. And we could just sit back and say, well, we know. No, you don't know. You got to keep figuring out what you can do to mitigate the effects of these things. And so Kevin and his team done a good job with that. Oh, it's night and day. I mean, Idalia, there was debris everywhere. And people would say that, well, Idalia's going through the Big Bend. It's a more rural area. There's not going to be as much damage. Well, maybe there weren't as many residential, but this is a very heavily wooded area. I mean, you have trees. There was trees down. There were things all over roads. It was a lot, particularly in places like Taylor and Dixie County. As you get into north central Florida, even more so. So what I've seen has not even come close to that, and you wouldn't expect that. Idalia was just a hair under a Category 4 hurricane. I mean, it was a major hurricane. And it didn't leave the same amount of water that we've seen in other parts of the state, but it did pack a really significant punch. And so ultimately, that's a good thing. If you're going to you don't want a hurricane, but if you do, to not have debris everywhere is really, really positive, because that debris is difficult to pick up. It creates hazards in the roads. There's just a lot of issues that go along with it. And we've seen storms where the debris has been overwhelming. I mean, Hurricane Michael, Mexico Beach was kind of ground zero for that, real serious destruction, and their debris bill was like $100 million, and their annual budget, I think, was like $5 million. So how are you going to be able to do that? You can't. It's overwhelming. And then we've stepped up to help. We got federal relief at the time under the Trump administration. So there's all that. But yeah, this is from a debris perspective, not even close. From wind damage to private residences, I think it won't even be close. Now, you are going to see some flood. We know there's hundreds of homes in the Sarasota-Bradenton area, particularly along the river. We could see more homes in north central Florida as that water rises. Now, hopefully it doesn't get to the point where people are having to be displaced, but Kevin's already planning, okay, we're going to start school on time. We're not going to be using those schools to house folks who may be displaced over the next couple weeks. But you may be displaced a week from now. It may not happen right now, particularly in north central Florida. So they're already working on, how are we going to help shelter folks if they need temporary shelter, while we also have kids in school and everything keeps going. I think we've learned with all this stuff, having kids out of school, sometimes you can't help it. I mean, if a school is not physically able to have school because of the hurricane damage, what are you going to do? We're not going to put people in an unsafe environment. But as you get past these, getting kids in school is a must. So the school year is going to start on time. We're going to use those school buildings for the school children, and any needs for sheltering are going to be met in other ways. And I think that's the right thing to do. Well, look, this is a tough situation. You have situations where a storm happens. Idalia did serious damage to a lot of people's residences. That is a very difficult thing. It's not always the easiest thing to get it fixed right away. And so to then have another storm come through as you're still picking up the pieces, even if it wasn't as powerful, it's almost like salt in the wound. So it can be demoralizing. But Kevin and the team are here. We're going to provide whatever resources we can to be helpful. We understand that these things can be very, very difficult. And the path was, it wasn't exact, but it was pretty doggone close to what we saw last year with that. And I remember on some of the hurricanes that we've had just since I've been governor, or ones that were kind of threatened, I remember starting out as governor, the one thing we were looking at different tracks. We're like, please don't go to Panama City again. Please, like, they already got whacked by please don't do that. Not that we wanted anyone to get it, but it's like, do we really want that? So having a second one can be difficult. And we even saw that in 2022. You had Hurricane Ian go in southwest Florida, rip up the entire center part of the state, and then go out to the Atlantic in Volusia County. But that created huge coastal issues in Daytona Beach and in some of those communities. And then we had a hurricane in November, and it wasn't nearly as powerful as Ian, not even close. But because they had just had that, you had dunes erode, you had different problems with the coast. Then you get another storm, and it just exacerbated it. So we're sensitive to that.
I'm curious what the FEMA reps have to say the next steps for the federal government. Are you up to chatting, sir, about the area you guys are at with
Do you want to take it?
I'll certainly let John Brogan, our FCO, speak if he would like to. The next steps in the FEMA process, though, Forrest, are 100% on us. You know, I know that Congresswoman Kamek is here, and the delegation has asked for them to reconsider our debris removal request as a part of the Cat A emergency declaration. I think that's going to be important, and I'm certainly not saying anything that John hasn't heard already. But the next step of this process is for us to do damage assessments, which we're going to do. That's going to look differently for every community. For instance, right here in Steinhatchee, that's going to happen here in the next day or two, that we'll be out here doing damage assessments, because again, you're not going to see any significant flood level rise here. But up in Live Oak, in Columbia County, Hamilton County, that damage assessment may not happen for another 2 weeks, because we're waiting on those rivers to crest to see what the actual damage is going to be. So that is on the state. That is not on the federal government. That's on the state for us to go in there and do those damage assessments. When we do those damage assessments, we will do those along with our FEMA counterparts, and then we will write a letter for the governor's signature to request a major disaster declaration. And it is at that point that'll go to the regional administrator in Atlanta, headquarters administrator, Deanne Criswell, and then on to the White House for that ultimate declaration. John, anything? Good?
We're just standing ready to support you.
Comment for the governor. I'd like to thank you for the decisions you made on the water quality there for the Everglades, and I just want to put a plug in for the scallops here, because the water quality issues are here, and
We've provided resources, and we want to continue to do that. And honestly, when we were down here 11 months ago, people were talking about bringing my wife scalloping, so she's been talking about that nonstop. So we got to find a time to be able to make that work. We were trying to figure out if our kids are going to be, have the patience to do it, and what, because we take them fishing, and it's like, you can't just get a fish immediately. That's not the way it works. But so they wait, and then one gets one, and the others get upset that they didn't get one. And I said, guys, you just got to relax. I mean, this is supposed to be relaxing. So we're trying to kind of get them into that. So they've got a lot of different interests. But no, I know it's important. It's something that that we have been helpful with, and we want to continue to do it. As well as the oysters that we see in the northwest Florida. It's important for the economy, and it's important for the way of life.
Governor, do you have any thoughts for the family of the 13-year-old who was killed in his mobile home in Lincoln County yesterday?
Well, we send condolences by that. I mean, this is these storms are hazardous. This was nothing anyone did wrong. It was just a cruel twist of fate that tree would fall on that. And so our hearts go out to the family. It's not right that things like this happen in life, and we're sad to hear it. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you up in Perry.